How's it going, everyone? You are watching the Manuscript podcast. This is the podcast where we believe 21st century man controls his destiny, that his choices define his future, and that he writes the script to his own freaking life. Okay? That's what this podcast is all about. I am your host and fellow man, Reuben Stamper, and I am so happy to be here with you all today. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. If you get something out of this episode, please consider subscribing. It would mean a lot. Housekeeping stuff, I suppose. I got married. Super awesome. Yeah, I married the love of my life. She is the best thing that ever happened to me objectively. And so that's why I was not filming episodes the past 2 weeks, because the one weekend I got married and the next I was on my honeymoon. So I'm like, I'm not going to make episodes those weekends. That's just not the time for it. So that's over with now. I'm back on the train. I am so stoked to be here with you all and to keep on putting out more episodes so that we can all grow together as men. So let's freaking go. I'm excited to be here. Okay, in today's episode, we are going to be talking about a bunch of different topics and studies and all kinds of stuff. I've been just, biting at the chomping at the bite, chomping at the bit to get to. So let's get right into it. We're going to start the episode by talking all about emotional regulation. Let's go. All right, so emotional regulation. What the hell is it? Okay, before we start talking about it, we probably should define what it is. Emotional regulation is a skill set that men can, and I believe should, adhere to, which allows them to look much more objectively at the situation they're in and to not allow their first primal or deepest emotions to control how they react. You can still feel them. That's totally normal. That's natural. That would be a problem probably if you didn't feel certain emotions during certain circumstances. But then the emotional regulation part is not necessarily suppressing, but it is just taking a step back for 1 second and saying, is this the correct emotion I'm supposed to have at this time, or am I overreacting in a big way? Now, growing up, I can think of a multitude of times that I would react, whether it was out of anger or jealousy or hurt. I would just overreact in such a big way. And, looking back at those situations, 99% of the time, it did not call for the way that I reacted to it. And I made it a much bigger deal than it ever needed to be. And as I've grown older, I'm still rather young, I'm 23, but as I've grown older, I've tried to become better and better at taking a deep breath and a step back and saying, is this the right way for me to react right now? And it also helps you not assume the worst of people. It's very easy to do. It's actually one of the best pieces of marriage advice that I've been given was to never assume someone's motives. So I think that applies to your friendships with your guy buddies, just family in general, and most people in the world. Some people are dicks. Some people are just straight up jackasses. They're out there. And I'm not trying to discount the fact that they're not. That they exist, unfortunately. But a lot of times people do things around you that you could easily take offense to, and that could easily cause your strongest emotions to, burst out of you. But that's not normally, first off, what the person meant, and second off, how you should react. A lot of times people say things, and it makes, the firecracker in you just pop off, and you're just ready for a fight, And in reality, what that person was saying was not at all aimed at you. It wasn't meant to hurt you. And you were the one who overreacted. And I don't mean you as in you, but I mean you as in all of us men, specifically me, because I have done that from time to time. And so it's a very valuable skill to have. And it really it's the skill of calming down for a second. And whether you're feeling jealous or you're feeling angry or your appetites are going crazy at that moment, it allows you to just, and once again, it takes repetition, but it allows you to step back for a second and say, am I about to react in the best way I could? And does this situation warrant the way that I initially want to react? And I think it's probably a little bit maybe harder in your teenage years when you've got all the crazy hormones running through you. And guys, I still have crazy hormones running through me. Don't get me wrong. But I think I've gotten much more level-headed in a lot of those situations where previously I would have just exploded and gotten very angry or loud or just felt very hurt or emotionally acted out in a way that I would look back on and be like, God damn, I went way over the top there. So I've been working on that, and I think I've gotten better at it. But it's made me think about it. That it is very important for men to master. And I wrote down a couple of reasons why I think this is the case, and I will go in depth in here in a second. But so let's start. Let's start with a couple reasons why you should want to master this skill of emotional regulation. Once again, it's not emotional deletion. It's not like completely cutting out the emotions. I just think that there is a skill that can be fostered in a man's life, which allows you to control your emotions for the best outcome possible. So, one of the first things that comes to mind when it comes to emotional regulation and why you should try and, put it into your life and put it into action is because it helps you enhance your relationships with others. Now, that's everybody, your family, your friends, your spouse, like whoever that is, this ability to not lash out and react in the worst way possible when something might be said around you that would be hurtful, or something done around you that might be construed as malicious towards you. And so, I think that that's a great reason to just think about, oh, maybe I should try and put this into my life, because it does help your relationships in so many ways. And I've talked about before that I'm happy man tries to attain a rich social life with both his family and his friends and his broader community. He tries to have a very just healthy social life because that contributes to him becoming a better person down the road. So it will help enhance your relationships. I got a kind of funny story about this. So in college, I believe it was midterms or finals. It was a very tough time. Everybody was feeling a little ragged, a little worn down because they'd been studying like really, really late into the night. And a couple guys, myself included, were hanging out in the common area of the dorm. Okay, so that's like the area where basically all the doors open up to. It's this big rectangle where there's like two couches and people would sit and just talk and stuff. And two of my buddies were walking past each other, and one of them accidentally bumped the other's shoulder. And the one whose shoulder got bumped was like, "Dude, what the hell?" And he's like, it went from 0 to 60 like that, okay? And everybody was stressed out. It was like like I said, it was either midterms or finals. So a lot of studying, a lot of hard work, and everyone's fuse was just a little bit shorter. And my buddy was like, "Dude, what the hell are you doing? Why would you hit me like that?" And he freaked out. And my other buddy, who is also kind of a naturally aggressive dude, great dude, but kind of, there's got that natural aggression to him, and just I don't even want to say aggression. That sounds wrong, but like very much like tribal, a little tribal. So he gets up in arms like really fast, and I'm sitting there on the couch, kind of just cracking up, right? Because I'm laughing because I'm watching this whole thing unfold, and it was just a minor infraction upon I guess both of them are great friends of mine, but it was a weird little moment where they went from 0 to 60 like that, and then they both like took a step back and they talked about it for just a split second, and they both figured out that there was no harm meant by it, and they kind of laughed it off. And I think it was a really great bonding moment because it was a moment where both of them kind of brought in that idea of like emotional regulation. They took a step back. They're like, okay, things just went from 0 to 60 like that. Maybe one person was looking for a fight and the other one was having a really bad day. I don't know exactly, but it's an hilarious story. We tell it to this day, but it just it escalated so quickly. And if that emotional regulation hadn't been there, it just would have been a full-out brawl, okay? Like, they would have been on the ground beating the shit out of each other. And don't get me wrong, that would have been kind of fun to watch, but it also was really cool to see their emotional regulation kind of kick in, and both of them come to a realization that, oh my gosh, there was no harm meant. We're cool. We can just sit back down. No hard feelings. And it was just a great moment where it's like, okay, yeah, it can really help your relationships. Now, that's a very extreme situation with your relationship, but there are times with anybody that you love that things are going to be said that will probably hurt your feelings. And a lot of times the other person didn't mean to, but they do. It still hurts your feelings. And that's something you should address, but also it's not necessarily a time where you should assume the worst of the other person and say, I think they're trying to really hurt me here. No, I think the manly thing to do is to say, okay, I'm going to try and assume the best until I'm really proven that you mean the worst. And in so doing, I'm going to try and keep myself in check, and I will maybe probe a little more farther with a question or two. And before I get to the point where I'm actually boiling because you are trying to be incendiary and hurt my feelings to the umpteenth degree. So, anyways, that's one reason. It enhances your relationships. So that is just one very clear-cut reason that you should try and implement emotional regulation into your life as a man. Secondly, let's talk about professional success. I don't know about you, but there have been times in my life where I have worked with managers or coworkers who have a piss-poor attitude and who get just crazy emotional super fast, and it makes for an incredibly stressful, dare I say, toxic work environment. It's the worst. I mean, anybody who is listening to this right now who could probably think of one person that they have worked with in their life who just keeps you on edge, And it's not because you feel like they're dominating you. It's just like you feel like any word you say could just trigger them off, and they could just explode. And it's like, calm down. You don't need to cause that much stress in everybody else's life. You can calm down a bit. And so when you think about those people, and you think about how annoying they are to be around, and you think about, okay, they should never be in a leadership position because they can't get their shit together, because the tiniest thing that happens outside the job description is the end of the world. They're not fun to work with. They're terrible to work with. Now, conversely, if you have someone who can actually have stuff happen that is not, fun, and it's not within the job description, but it happens and you have to deal with it, when there's someone that you're working around that can just keep their head cool, a level head in really trying situations, then damn, that's a really good person to work around. That's someone that as a boss, you would want to elevate. And you'd want to say, hey, you show a lot of promise, especially with how you interact with other people, because you can keep a level head. Even when you may have all these emotions boiling up, you can say no to them for a second and say, okay, how should I properly react here? And I think that's what a good leader does, and thus a good man. So if you're looking at it from just a tangible reason for why you should try and implement this emotional regulation into your life, your professional success is really up there, because there's a lot of hard skills when it comes to what you do with your job. But there's also soft skills. Soft skills are dealing with people and your communication and how you present yourself to others. And those things do matter, and they do matter for your professional success down the road. If you're a jackass all the time and you're an employee and not the boss, first off, if you're the boss, your business will fail if you're a jackass for the most part. And then second off, if you're an employee, you're never going to get elevated. Your boss is going to look at you and say, okay, you just caused problems in the workplace. Why would I try and put you into any kind of leadership position or, have you rise above the rank you currently are in? So, master emotional intelligence so you can get your raise, so you can actually progress farther in the workplace and faster than other people. Because it's a hard skill to have. I mean, and it takes work and it takes practice, but it is worth it. Another thing I want to talk about, and this is a weird one, but health benefits. It's crazy, but stress is not good for the overall health of your bodily system. It's not. Now, it's not to say that difficulty isn't. Like working out is literally ripping muscle fibers so they can grow back stronger. I like the idea of cold showers. It builds resilience. I like that. There's a lot of things that are uncomfortable that I'm not saying that those stresses, those natural stresses, aren't good for you. They can be. They can make you stronger. But this resounding idea that everyone around you is out to get you, and that at any moment you can't trust yourself to not explode in a fit of anger, a fit of rage, or just say something incredibly mean to someone when they didn't mean to say anything mean about you, right? When you're living with that weight on your shoulders, that's a constant stress on you. It's a constant stress on you. And it's a constant stress to those around you. Like back to that work idea. Like people don't want to be around you if you're that kind of person. So if you can just master, and like I said, it takes time, but if you could master this idea of emotional regulation, well, you're actually going to have like a healthier life. You're not going to have those bags in your eyes. You're going to sleep better. You're going to be at peace. And peace, in my opinion, is priceless. And then lastly, one thing that I think is very beneficial to men is being able to make decisions. And if you're going to master emotional regulation, well, damn it. I mean, your decision-making process will be enhanced. It will. Because what mastering your emotions does, and being able to regulate them, what that does is it allows you to stop looking inwards and feeling all this turmoil and actually look outwards for a second and say, okay, what are the actual factors happening right now? How do I address this? What is the proper way to address this? And this ties into courage. It ties a little bit into temperance, the virtues that I've talked about before. But yes, this idea you need to, like when it comes to courage, you are basically stomping on fear for a second so you can actually look your enemy in the eye and say, okay, how do I best take you out? How do I best handle this situation? Temperance, when you're trying to suppress your appetites a little bit, when they're getting a little out of hand, you're like, I shouldn't eat the whole cake, there's this idea of self-control. And the same thing is true for your emotions, all your emotions. Being able to, express them when you need to. Like there are times when you have a heartfelt conversation with someone and it brings tears to your eyes, and that's not wrong. That's a healthy emotion to have, and there's a time when someone is trying to beat the shit out of you and you need to kind of get that anger and that fire in your eye and say, no, like, let's go. It's time. That is also valuable. But that's not valuable in every situation. And it's actually valuable in very few. Like you need to have it in your back pocket, but you don't want to react that way every time you have a conversation that's a little uncomfortable, or someone says something that's like a little out of your wheelhouse, and you're like, I really wish you wouldn't have said that. This happens with politics all the time. People do not keep level heads. Someone says one thing about a policy or an idea that the other person just hates, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm going for your neck. This is terrible. And it's so childish. It's like, get a grip of yourself. Get a grip on yourself, okay? Like you can get heated, you can get emotional about things. That's fine, but it doesn't need to happen every single time. And it has its place, and most of the time, that place is not in the conversation you are currently in. So, anyways, it does contribute to enhanced decision making, and therefore, it is worth trying to master. So then we'll get to the last part. How does one master this? How does one actually incorporate this into your life as a man? I have said it, I think, 30 times already, but practice. Practice. I have still got a long way to go in this department. I'm still trying to grow in this skill, but it has become better over time because I've had many more instances where I can actually enact it. I can say, okay, Reuben, take a step back. You want to explode right now. You want to get really angry. You want to say something really hurtful to someone. Don't do it. Don't do it. Get a hold of yourself, and then make your decision after that. Give yourself a couple seconds before you react. And so that is really the key. It's just every time you come into a situation where that is going to happen, where you do feel these emotions well up within you, think about them for a second. Don't just let them express themselves instantly to the world around you. Take a second to be a little introspective and think, okay, is this the correct way for me as a man to react right now in this situation? So, anyways, that is all the emotional regulation stuff I wanted to talk to you guys about, but I thought it was super interesting, and it is a skill that I believe that every man should incorporate into his life if he wants to reach that next level of happiness and proficiency, and actually in so many areas of his life, whether it's his relationships or his job, or just making good decisions on the fly, So, anyways, that's all I have to say. Let's move on to the second part of the podcast, and I hope you enjoyed. All right, everyone, I'm excited for this next part of the podcast. We've got a study today from the Pew Research Center. Let's get into it. So, according to a study by the Pew Research Center, 1 in 4 parents say that they track their young adult child's location with GPS apps. Most of the tracking is done to 18 to 24-year-olds, and among parents answering about a child in this age range, 42% say that they track their location. This is new. This is new. 15 years ago, we were not dealing with this question of parents being able to track where their child was at all times. Not everybody had phones on them all the time, and they definitely didn't have GPS app tracking abilities. Maybe, this is my argument, maybe this is not the move, okay? We've all heard about the dangers of helicopter parenting. There are helipads hella everywhere, okay, across the United States. Like, if this is happening to people who are between the ages of 18 and 24, that cannot be good. Cannot be good. It can't be good for their development, for Pete's sake. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who do this, and, I don't think they're bad people, but I think that this practice is bad. I do. I legitimately do. I get the safety argument. Parents say, I need to know where my kid's at for their safety, okay? Like, you're worried that they're going to get kidnapped? Is that the issue? Because if they get into trouble, they would just theoretically be able to call you, or to call a friend, or to handle it themselves. Maybe that would build a little bit of character, a little bit of resilience in them, where they're not having to call mom and dad to fix everything for them. That would probably be good. But anyways, are you worried about them getting kidnapped? Because I hate to get dark here. I really do. But if your kid gets kidnapped, one of the first things that's getting thrown out is the phone. The phone's gone. Like, any smart kidnapper would do that. And I know it sounds very dark to talk about, but it's true. It's true. So that argument is kind of bullcrap, in my opinion. But there is a bigger issue here, which maybe kids shouldn't be coddled like this. Especially, you're not a kid. If you're between 18 and 24, I mean, if my parents are tracking me all the time, I mean, what a lack of trust I would feel from them to me, And I think that's one of the bigger issues I have with it personally, is that, young men are supposed to be given, I think, a message of resilience in this culture, and not one of, oh, I'm always going to be right behind you to help you and hold your hand, with whatever is going to happen to you. No, sometimes bad shit happens to you, and you have to figure it out. You have to handle it in the moment, and you can't always rely on mom and dad to fix it for you. And so that is why I think this tracking thing is bullshit, and it's actually very bad for parent-child relationships, and actually having true respect between those two people. I think it's very hard to do when one is obviously in the more powerful situation, in the more powerful position, because they're like, oh, I'm tracking you, so I can always keep tabs on you, and I think that also probably would cause a lot of issues, as far as why are you over here when you said you were going to be over there? It's like, I needed to get gas. I just think it could cause all kinds of issues on that front. But anyways, I digress on the character building side of things. I just think that this whole stat, right, saying that 1 in 4 parents track their adult child, so over 18 years old, tracks their location with a GPS tracking app. That I do not think is good for relationships between parents and children. It's not good for the development of young men specifically. And I understand this is all done out of love by parents. I get that. But sometimes love can actually, that kind of love can cause a lot of problems in someone's life. So, like I said, 15 years ago, this wasn't a thing. I grew up in a world, I was one of the last people that grew up in a world where this wasn't like commonplace. It wasn't commonplace to have your parents tracking you all the time, and I've talked before, I had a Reuben rant section about kids not being able to have fun anymore because they don't get to do stupid stuff that might be slightly dangerous, but also creates lasting memories. I've talked about that before. And now it's like, if you were going to sneak out to go to a party, and I'm not advising you should do that, but if you were, your parent could just be like, why are you at this person's house? What's going on? It's 11:30 at night, and maybe that's for the best. Maybe it is. But also it does take away some of that fun that could organically happen otherwise. Yeah, I just think that this idea that you have to worry constantly about your kid, it's like refusing to walk into a forest because you think that a limb is going to fall and hit you on the head. The forest is beautiful. Go in there. Go have a good time. This idea that you should constantly be worrying about, oh, well, I wonder what Jimmy's doing today. Oh, is he gonna be okay? Is he gonna be? I just need to go check. No, honey, I just need to go check. And then you're just spying on your kid all the time. I just think that is super weird. It denotes a lack of trust in your child, which is never good, and it also takes away that aspect of maybe that their character would grow if some bad stuff happened to them that was minor bad stuff, not big terrible stuff, but minor bad stuff that they had to handle in the moment and they had to deal with themselves. Yeah, hardship can make you into a stronger person, believe it or not. It's crazy. But anyways, that's all I have to say on that topic. I thought that was really interesting. I knew this was a thing, but not this prevalent. Parents, 42% of them were saying that between the ages of 18 and 24, they tracked their children. And they're not children, they're adults at this point, guys. It's hard to not think of someone as a child if their parent is tracking them all the time, So, maybe this is why we're all growing up later and staying infants for so long. I don't know. But anyways, let's move on to the third. Voice crack. Let's move on to the third part of the podcast. Reuben rants. Let's go. All right, gents. I am feeling a little ballistic today. I am. It's true. So I am very excited for this Reuben rants part of the podcast. I'm rolling up my sleeves. That's right. I am excited because today we are talking about something I am very, very passionate about, and that is the male victimhood mentality. Something that I have raged against for a while, and if you listen to the intro to this podcast, you would probably know why. Because I'm a big believer in personal responsibility and the idea that you can change your future. Now, seemingly, some people get off on the idea of, I can't. And they find every weaselly excuse to say, I can't. It's very hard to be around these people because they're a bunch of lowbrow hope stealers, and they are taking away this vision of life that is hopeful. They're saying you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this because of X, Y, or Z. You can't do these great things because you're being held back by X, Y, or Z. And it's no way to live your life, especially for a guy trying to make his way in the world. Like you're never with that mindset, you're never gonna get anywhere. Here's a couple things I have heard just recently. Like you look around in news articles, you look around, and this stuff gets clicks. It gets clicks because it's exotic, and it's very easy to sell a desperate message. Where it's like, oh, things are terrible. Everyone's like, yeah, things are terrible. Thank you for telling me. That's a weak way to live your life. Don't do that. Live a strong life, okay? And choose to say, I can. I'll get more into that later. But here's a couple things I've heard. You can't get ahead because boss man's always keeping you down. You can't buy a house because the economy is terrible. You can't make a living as a man today. The wages just aren't good enough. I can't lose weight because my schedule is too busy. You can't get married because marriages always fail. I obviously disagree with that. You can't start a business because the market is too saturated. I mean, another one. There aren't any date-worthy women left out there. These are all things that these stupid hope stealers just steal from everyone. And it's so aggravating because they're not doing anything with their lives. They're not going to get ahead. That's the truth, okay? These messages are just plain old bullshit. And it's very aggravating to be around people who want to spread this idea that, I can't get ahead, so no one else can get ahead either. Okay, that's envy, man. That's saying they almost get this like sick sadistic pleasure from this idea that they can't get ahead simply because, they have convinced themselves that they can't. That's what it is, okay? You can get ahead. You can do better. You can make a better life for yourself. That's the American message anyways. That's how I feel. So yeah, those messages are bullshit. Here's the good news, and here's the bad news. The bad news is those people will never get ahead. They won't until they change their mindset, until they decide to take on a resilient mindset of saying, I can. They will never get ahead. That's the bad news. And it's sad. It's sad. It's their own damn fault, but it's sad. The good news is you can choose to not be one of those people. And I implore you to not be one of those people. There's a great book by Robert Kiyosaki. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's like a New York Times bestseller. Very famous book. If you haven't read it, I recommend it. And it's a book all about how to become wealthy financially. It's a financial book. But very famous for a couple of different reasons. But the number one takeaway that I got from that book, because I disagree with some of the stuff he said, but one of the major takeaways I got from that book was this idea he talked about where he said, rich people do not say, I can't. They say, how can I? That's very simple, and yet somehow incredibly profound. And when you start to apply that, like after I read that book, I started to try and apply that to so many different situations in my life that weren't even financial, but just really every part of my life where I was like, okay, I'm not going to say I can't. I'm not going to let my first reaction be cynical. I'm going to say, okay, how can I? You know, my first reaction might be, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. And it's like, no, you probably could. You probably could. How could you? You know, how can I? That mindset shift is it will make an astronomical difference in your life. It truly will. And so I'm sick and tired of all these people who want to say that they can't get ahead because of outside influences, when in reality, they're holding themselves back. They've got so much potential. If you're a dude out there and you keep on saying, I can't do this, I can't do that, don't hold yourself back like that. You can do it. You can. So I do want to tell you like a little story from a week ago. Sometimes this gets me a little emotional, so I'm going to try and keep it under control because this occurrence did really move me. But I have a nephew, okay? He's the cutest little dude ever, okay? And I was hanging out at my parents' house, and my nephew, Gus, he's a bomb. He's got like all these trains, right? You know, like he's a little man. He likes to play with trains, like I did too. You know, Matchbox cars, all those things. So he's playing with trains. And he's grabbing this Thomas the Tank Engine train, and you know, he's like running up the side of this like chest we have in the middle of the living room, and he's going, I think I can, and it really moved me. It really did, because there's so many kids' stories growing up that had such, you know, they're very simplistic but amazing messages that I never thought about. You know, I just grew up with them, and I was given them by my parents, and they knew what they were doing, I suppose, when they gave me those books. But I just read them. I was like, oh, that's a great story. And Gus was talking about the short story, you know, like the little engine that could, and it's a fucking amazing story, okay? And I know this is like very simplistic, and you're gonna be like, "Oh, Reuben, that's so stupid." I don't give a shit. Actually, I'll go into it. The whole story of the little engine that could, right? He's the tiny engine. He's not supposed to be able to make it up this massive ass mountain. You know, all these big engines are laughing at him. They're saying, "You can't do it. You can't do it. There's no way. You're a tiny engine. You're never gonna make it up the mountain. You're never gonna make it." And you know, you're a runt. You can't do it. You can't do it. And he starts. The little engine starts, and he takes it a chug at a time. And as he's going up the mountain, in his head, he doesn't necessarily hear the doubt of the other people. He doesn't say, I can't do this, I'm going to roll back down the mountain. He goes, I think I can. And slowly but surely, he makes his way up the mountain. And he struggles, and it's difficult, and there's roadblocks in the mountain, and there are things that, you know, cause hiccups for him going up the mountain. But he makes it. He makes it because he has this incredibly resilient mindset where he says, I think I can. To hell with what everybody else is saying and what the world around me is saying. Fuck you. I can do this. And it's not an arrogant thing. It's a resilience thing, okay? It's saying I could take on the mindset very easily, the comfortable mindset where I just roll back down the mountain and I don't make it up. And I don't struggle and strive for the peak. I could do that. It's very easy. Very easy. That's an easy out. But he doesn't. He says, I think I can. He makes his way up the mountain. And it moved me seeing my nephew with this little Thomas the Tank Engine train, trying to go up the side of this chest. I think I can. And that story, it hit me. It hit me in the feels. It really did. And I was like, damn, what a fucking awesome message to give to our young men. Like, that is the message that American men need to be hearing. Men all around the world, okay? It's not this, you're being held back by a million different outside influences. No, it's think that you can and you will. Think that you can and you will. Stop saying I can't. There's times in your life where I've said I won't. There's been a lot of times like that. There's things in my life that I'd like to go skydiving. I won't. It's not that I can't. Like, I physically could go do it. I could make the time to go and get in a helicopter or airplane or whatever and jump out and do the parachute thing and go skydiving. That would be cool. I won't. But I'm not going to say I can't. I can't because of my schedule. If I really wanted to, I could make it happen. And when you have this idea of, okay, if I really want to do something and I want to prioritize it, I can make it happen. Whether that's fitness or reading your books or whatever it is, you can make it happen. Don't say I can't. Say I won't. That's okay. You can live with that. That's fine. I live with that a lot of times in my life. It's like, I would love to be crazy jacked. I'm not going to dedicate enough time in the gym to do that. I would love to read, 3 books a week. I could do that, but I wouldn't be able to do the podcast, and I wouldn't be able to stay in shape, and, I wouldn't be able to work extra and make extra money to hopefully have money for a down payment on a house someday. I wouldn't be able to do those things, and those things matter to me more than reading 3 books a week. So it's not that I can't. I could do it. It would just cause a sacrifice of so many things that it's not worth it to me. So, just sometimes recognize, I won't do it, and that's okay. And I'm making that conscious decision. But don't say I can't. Don't do that. Don't take on this male victimhood mentality. It gets me so fired up because it is, when you meet people who don't have that mindset, they are inspiring. They lift you up, okay? They take you to new heights. And you look at them and you just say, you're doing something so difficult. Like, the level of excellence that you hold yourself to is so impressive. And it's happening because you aren't giving in to these stupid messages all around you that are telling you can't. You're saying, how can I? You're making a plan, and then you're executing. It's freaking beautiful. It really is. It really is. Anyways, I will stop ranting about this whole thing, but the male victimhood mentality, if you're in it, and I've been there before, man, I've sulked. I have sulked. I have been down in the dumps and just felt like I was given the worst hand ever at times, It wasn't true. It was bullshit. It was a terrible message I was giving myself, but that's how I felt, and I've got out of it, and I'm never going back. I'm never going back because to be in a place where you can say, I can do almost anything I set my mind to is so freeing. You'll never go back to that sulking self where you say, I'm just held back because, damn, my hand is terrible and I'm never going to get a new set of cards. It's not true. It's not true. So if you are like that, please, for your own sake, for the sake of those you love and the people around you, get out of that headspace and get a better framework for your life. Thank you. All right, everyone, that about does it for this episode of the Manuscript Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you got something out of the episode, please consider subscribing. It would mean the world to me. Stay tuned for episodes coming up in the coming weeks. I'm very excited to keep on getting this routine going again. I did miss it very much. I love getting married and going on the honeymoon. Amazing, but I did miss doing this podcast. So I'm happy to be back with you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Manuscript Podcast. Have a great day, and remember, as always, there's a better life out there. Let's get after it.